So Ms. Stanton.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I wish I had as much interest in every park project as we have here tonight. At the December 21st council meeting, you approved the Centennial Trail Master Plan, except for the location of 15 stalls of trail parking. The Parks Board recommended the location of the trail parking to be at the library. The Senior Center Board of Directors and members urge that this parking be located alongside the Senior Center, where it can be accessed from the Senior Center driveway and available for joint use by both Senior Center members and trail users. The Council requested more information on the 21st, including a plan showing the 15 stalls added alongside the Senior Center driveway. You directed me to minimize the cost and project delay in preparing this plan. The sketch included in your packet took about an hour and a half of consultant time. This version constructs a curb on the edge of the Senior Center's existing asphalt driveway from the street to the entrance path in the center of the building, and then beginning just past the walkway, it adds head-in parking out onto the graveled Federal Highways property. One of the stalls is accessible, and the remaining 14 are regular parking stalls, and the last stall lines up with the northernmost row of the Senior Center's existing parking lot. The Senior Center has since provided you with a version of this plan that includes master plan elements. I believe they did not intend to propose paving the entire gravel area along the driveway in the way that the version shows, but just the area needed for 15 stalls. We know that 25 cars would not be acceptable under the conditions of the grant. You also asked for more detail about parking and about Federal Highways requirements. And as the memo shows, there is substantial on and off-street parking in the area within blocks of the center. But the convenience and the proximity of this location at the Senior Center is still preferred by center members. As you know, WSDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation, is the steward of the federal highway funds used to buy the trail property. And they have explained that lands bought with these funds can only be used for public transportation purposes. But they have explained that 15 stalls could never be coned off and trail users excluded from them. But thanks to help from the Senior Center Board, we have an answer, as actual unequivocal answer from WSDOT, that they do consider that making both the 15 trail stalls and the 31 Senior Center stalls all joint use. If all 46 stalls are first come, first serve, that this is definitely acceptable under the terms of the Federal Highway Grant. WSDOT did say that a formal request would have to be submitted and include documentation like the existing lease, and an agreement between the city and the Senior Center Board to permit shared use of all 46 stalls, and further notations in different documents that would explain how this would be protected for Federal Highways conditions. So, sharing all the stalls gives the Senior Center an immediate 50% increase in the number of stalls available to them at no additional cost to the city or the center. That means that the current program schedules could remain unchanged. Trail users would also have more off-street parking available, again at no additional cost. And what makes the shared use appealing is that peak times appear to be somewhat different for the two groups. So currently, Senior Center peak use is weekdays 10 to 4. We expect trail users to be more likely to use the trail after work on weekdays, or in the morning, before 10 a.m. certainly, and trail users would most often be using the parking during the weekends, when the Senior Center is normally closed. Even if the center is rented on the weekend, most social events don't start until late afternoon or evening, leaving most daylight hours available for trail parking. So I believe that summarizes summarizes the council's main requests for more information, and I will be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Yes, Councilman Randall.
Ms. Stanton, I was just wondering, has the staff talked to the Senior Center Board to see if they are willing to go with the 46 stalls,
yes.
No designation of use?
Where are you? yes, that it has.
And they were okay with that idea?
I think they're here to speak for themselves.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I was just
yes, we have, and yes, it was my personal understanding that the 46 stalls shared jointly, first come, first served, was acceptable.
Was there any discussion about the use of the restroom facilities at the Senior Center?
I raised it as a concern later. I did not think of it when I was having these conversations, but I've talked about it since.
In case people that were using, that parking area for trail use needed,
It's a reasonable thing to think that a 5-year-old is going to need to go and mom's going to bring the child in and ask to use the restroom. That would be a reasonable. I'm not sure how the Senior Center would choose to respond, but
okay.
I think it's a reasonable.
We'll ask them when they come up.
Okay.
Other questions of Ms. Stanton from Council? Yes, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Guzak. When the Parks Board was looking at the entire plan, how many options on parking did they look at?
OTAC was asked to identify locations along the trail corridor where we could put parking, and in particular 15 stalls as agreed to in our environmental work with Federal Highways. And there were parking stalls. It was pointed out that there was the Boys and Girls Club was right there. The Howell Pool site is available. There was room at the library, room along the driveway at the Senior Center, and on the south side of 6th Street, there was room for a 6-car parking lot. So I think those were the off-street parking places mentioned in the review.
Thank you. Other questions of Ms. Stanton? I have a question for you. I know that if we went for the joint parking, do you see any potential for losing our funding if it sounded like that was a possibility still?
That has been a question I have put to WashDOT, Department of Transportation, since I think April of last year in as specific of terms as I could, and it really wasn't until today I received a phone call from the Northwest Local Programs Engineer, or Northwest Regional Office Local Programs Engineer, that said, we can agree that if the city provides the 46 stalls as joint use, then Federal Highway funds will be safe.
It will be safe?
They would not predict or expect any scenario, and I gave them a few. I gave them scenarios of what could happen, or what about this, or what about that, because as you know, the last thing we want to do is invest thousands of dollars in a parking stall and then find out we're getting complaints, and WashDOT and Federal Highways is saying, well, now let's see about this, Maybe we want this money back. You're not in turn. Well, so today, this afternoon, 3:30, I get a call saying 46 stalls, shared, first come, first serve, never cone off or say if the 15 stalls cannot be used, then we're in compliance. We still have to go through the approval process, but they would not, they finally gave me an answer that kind of a setup would protect our funding.
All right, good. So can you, in a scenario, for example, a Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, there's a wedding at the Senior Center, and 150 guests have been invited, and they drive in there and they park in open slots throughout that, and somebody comes in at 4 o'clock to go on the trail, and there's no trail parking.
There's almost 600 parking stalls on street. And as a peak event, that's what we do with our peak events. We park wherever we can. We don't So even in that scenario, then Federal Highways is not expecting us to, or is not expecting to turn around and pull the rug out from under us.
Okay, good, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Councilmember Shalati.
I know we could think of 100 different scenarios, and we could go on and on all night. But I have a scenario that follows on the heels of that. So say that there is a wedding on a Sunday afternoon, and someone in the party decides to block off the parking and say, wedding parking only. Where does that put us as a city, and how, if that's happening over and over again, where's the onus? Who regulates that? How do we go back and forth in those kind of situations? And is that a concern to staff?
That is what concerns me, that we can't predict every scenario, and I have been very uninterested in putting at risk the investment that this council and other councils have made. What I have, though, is WSDOT's representation that we are doing our due diligence by identifying it as joint use parking. I don't know if there's a situation that none of us have thought of, or if that would be the trigger. I even asked Ed Connors, well, what if Cascade Bicycle Club? They're somewhat litigious. They have a lot of attorneys as members. What if they show up and they say, no, we have a right to use this lot? I think there is some enforcement where there can't be a sign on the driveway that says wedding parking only. And I would venture to say that the first recourse is with the center staff. Senior center staff would need to say, sorry, you can't do that. And that might be the city's defense saying, it's in our agreement that senior center staff needs to do that, and then it needs to be done in response to that situation. But this is why this is the downside of this location. There's nowhere near the ownership at the library situation, and that's why the library was the preferred location for these 15 stalls. It didn't have these ramifications, but it didn't have the benefits of relieving some of the parking preferences of the senior center members.
Okay, yes, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Zach. In our packet this evening is a survey of parking in the vicinity of the senior center, and I know that was recently updated. Was that considered when OTAC was tasked with looking for 15 spaces, or when the Parks Board met?
No, that came later. That came in response to representations that the senior center parking lot was undersized, that the 31 stalls was not sufficient. And actually it turns out that 31 stalls is very close to working for the seniors. The car counts that are just slightly above 31 on average also includes cars parked on 4th Street, which may or may not be at the senior center. So I think actually the senior center did a pretty good job with their 31 stalls as far as their programmed use.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Councilmember Clemens.
Thank you, Mayor Guzak. I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but the senior center has been very successful and has grown substantially. And I would I believe the expectation is that they'll continue to grow. And as they do, they currently have 31 spaces. As they grow in membership, or is there going to be a demand for greater parking?
The membership is growing, and it's really a credit to the building and the staff at the senior center. What I have learned is that the building actually is almost completely fully programmed, that you can't. I've tried to sign up for lunches and been told, no, it's full. So it's programmed, it's full, and they're not going to be a ton more cars unless they get more classroom space or more event space. That's what I've learned from conversations with senior center staff.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, then we're going to open this for citizens to comment. And again, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address, and then council will come back to this issue after we hear from what our citizens have to say.
Good evening, Morgan Davis, 206 Avenue. This whole senior parking versus trail users parking controversy involves just 15 parking stalls. And to put things in perspective, the proposed redevelopment of the so-called Pilchuck district calls for 5-story, unlimited, high-density buildings scattered throughout only 86 acres. Right now, the building code limits buildings to 3 stories or 35 feet, and high density is capped at 24 residential units per acre. The Cascade Land Conservancy, which is paying for this proposal study, hopes to save forest land in the foothills of the Cascades from further development. That is a fine goal. But the citizens of Snohomish shouldn't bear the brunt of the burden by having to put up with congestion, noise, lack of parking, and yes, a higher crime rate. And costing existing residential citizens more taxes. And according to Owen Dennison's study, 1,320 new residential units are planned for this Pilchuck district. At 4 persons per household, that amounts to cramming over 5,000 new people in this historic 86-acre district. And the senior center is right in the middle of this district. And I'm going to ask the seniors to reconsider this alternative shared use. They're giving up 31 exclusive parking stalls in the hopes of getting 15. Well, that may not work out. And I have another alternative to think about, and that is to make use of carpooling and volunteers giving rides to seniors that are unable to walk a block from the library to the center. I understand that over half the senior members live outside the city limits of Snohomish. They come from Lake Stevens, Maltby, Clearview, and Monroe. And I even had a couple ideas. I talked with Mr. Councilman Hamilton about maybe electric golf cart from the library to shuttle over a block to the senior center, and that will cover the growth that's expected, because 15 is not going to make it anyway. And another thing is they could have, like at the casinos, on their card games, their high density on Tuesday and Thursday, their pinochle and bridge games, they could have valet parking. They could get volunteers like the ROTC or some of these high school students that could put their cars over in the library lot. And another thing is, as a taxpayer, if the city loses the funding, I'm going to have to pay for this mistake. And these bicyclists come from Seattle. They got hordes of them. They clog up Spring Getty Road. They come into town, and they really could cause a lot of trouble. And there's whistleblowers everywhere, as you know, in government. There's always somebody that's going to complain, and I don't want to end up paying this grant that we got back. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
I'm Maxine Bishop, 14710, 123rd Avenue Southeast, Snohomish. I have been was a member of the board of directors of the Snohomish Senior Center for 8 years, and I was the treasurer and on the budget and finance committee.
I'm Janet Phillips, and I'm at the Senior Center. I work as a volunteer and enjoy all the programs. My address is 11203 13th Street. I appreciate you listening to us and the hard work you've done on our parking situation. We really do need parking, and we are growing, and I just, I think it's a beautiful plan that Ann has done. I just wish that we could have more parking, and hope you see it my way.
Thanks, Ms. Phillips.
I'm Esther Betts from Suncrest Drive.
Yes, Esther Betts?
Yes,
Is that
Suncrest
right?
Drive in Snohomish here. And I volunteer at the center and mainly at the reception desk. And I have seen these people that are handicapped and elderly that have to come in, and they have to park close. There's no way that they can park, away or even catch a ride, because
it's really difficult for them. So I really think that we're in dire need of extra parking. And thank you for all your help.
Thank you, Ms. Betts.
I'm Bernice Coleman. I live at 406 Wood Street, which is not very far from the center. But I too would encourage the approval of the 15 spaces. As Esther indicated, there are many who would like to be able to walk from the library but are unable to. And as far as having a golf cart or some sort of transportation, the different programs vary in time, and it would require endless volunteer time to shuttle people forth and back. I think that approving the 15 spaces is really necessary for all the members of the center as well as visitors. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to speak to us.
My name is Brad Bishop. I live at 14710 123rd Avenue Southeast, Snohomish. I've lived in the community for 30 years, since 1979. I've been a board member of the Senior Center for 6.5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
My name is Carl Heinzer. My address is 7220 77th Avenue Southeast. I've been a member of the Senior Center since '96. There is a lot of handicapped people there, and I do ask the city, please, let us have those 15 stalls. We need them badly. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you very much.
My name is Dorothy Keenan. I live at 1101 10th Street. I've been a member of the Senior Center since the late 90s. We've gone through many changes, as you're all aware of, and we appreciate everything the city of Snohomish has done for us in the past. And this parking situation is really a challenge. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. But anyway, it really is a dire situation that we're in because, as some of the others have said, a lot of the folks that come there are handicapped, and to walk across the street from the library may not seem very far to most people. But for seniors, that can be a challenge, especially in the bad weather. So we appreciate anything you can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan.
I'm Anita Gay. I live at 7416 79th Avenue in Snohomish, which is out of town. I've been a volunteer in different capacities at the center since 2000, and I thoroughly agree with everything that's been said by my fellow members here.
Thank you, Ms. Gay.
I'm Gary Gable at 707 Avenue B, right in town. I'm relatively new with the activities at the Senior Center, and I've worked, especially like with the cribbage marathons that we put on, and I've seen some of the dynamics of needs for parking as a side issue for me, but the proposal for the amicable working of the stalls I think is a good one because it shows the work between the, not only Snohomish and the Senior Center, but the state and the Senior Center. And I think something can be definitely worked out. I'm concerned about the image as the end result is what we finally has decided, that it's a good, positive, mutually worked out image that we have. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking.
My name is Pierre Knopfus. My address is 12814 58th Drive Southeast. I ride a bike on the trail many times, and I've never found any problem finding parking just a little farther north of the street. So I think if you can ride a bike, it doesn't matter if you ride a little, maybe a quarter mile farther.
Thank you for speaking.
My name is Gloria Canopus, 12814 58th Drive Southeast. And we are Snohomish, but we are not in Snohomish. We're closer to Mill Creek. But we really are thrilled with this Snohomish Senior Center. And there are various people, older and younger, disabilities, good, still good to walk, but mostly we do need that parking. Thank you.
My name is Pat Husted. I live in Lake Stevens. There are a great many members at the senior center here from Lake Stevens. A lot of us play bridge, and I would say out of probably 35 people that play bridge, at least 3/4 of them, probably 80%, are 80 or more, 80 years old or more. And a lot of us can't walk very well, and we very, very definitely need to have at least those 15 parking places, because we totally enjoy being there. And if you can't park, if there's no parking place, then we can't go. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Husted. I live in Lake Stevens. I was the former director of the Senior Center from 2002 to 2004. There are some misnomers that should be corrected. There's a lot of us who are members of the Senior Center who are veterans of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And these people suffer infirmities, and they do not have the physical ability to walk like the people that are using the Centennial Trail. I think the Centennial Trail is a great idea, but to have parking for these people that are going to run, walk, jog on the trail is ludicrous. They could find a place to park and they could walk. But as for carpooling, there's so many of us out there that have macular degeneration, asthma, rheumatism, bad joints, bad hearts, high blood pressure. They can't have the mobility that you folks up there have. They don't have it. So please, it is to give up parking for a pea patch is ludicrous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Husted.
Very good.
January 18th, 2011, to the Snohomish City Council members. From the Snohomish Senior Center Membership Representative Maxine Bishop. The subject is programs, mobility, and joint use of parking. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Maxine Bishop, and I reside at 14710, 123rd Avenue Southeast. We are here again this evening to ask the council to approve the move of 15 parking spaces currently planned for the library block to the senior center block. We believe that combining the current 31 spaces in the seniors parking lot with 15 approved additional spaces along the trail in the senior center block, making 46 spaces available for joint public use of seniors and trail users, will serve the greater good in our community. The library parking lot is huge. The senior lot is small. So the convenience for the trail users and seniors alike to have additional public parking in the senior block with easy access to the trail is not only good for the public users, but also makes common sense and represents the practical approach. Our board has prepared a rendering showing you how the parking would look at the senior center, intermixed with plantings and picnic tables, event shelters, and trail walkway in the design. It is beautiful and something to be proud of. The center currently, as of January 2011, hosts an average of 67 programs, activities per week. We averaged 58 programs per week 2010 and 55 programs per week 2009. This senior center program is not fully programmed, as incorrectly stated in the staff report before you. As you can see, between 2009 and January 2011, we grew 12 new programs, with many more on the way. The staff report before you also identifies 600 public parking places available within 3-block walking distance of the center. The majority of the seniors cannot walk up to 3 blocks to reach the final destination, the senior center. We challenge the council to consider how many well-fit persons
or the young would consider walking that distance unless without need or on special occasions. I would like to submit to you into the record a letter from our Executive Director, Kathy McNulty, in which she speaks to the program, parking, and mobility issues of our population. The state has told our board that the parking lot can be used jointly, and there is no worry or fear that grant monies will be lost. We were so excited to learn that the state approved of the joint use of parking arrangement, and we wonder why there is so much resistance by the city. Please consider approving a parking plan that moves the 15 stalls to the senior center block, as this will truly serve the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop.
Leah Badgley, 425 Pine Avenue. Council, good evening. With regards to the trail parking location issue before you tonight, from a personal perspective, I would prefer to see no parking encroachments at all along the very narrow parkland which follows the trail. But that option is not being considered here tonight. Therefore, speaking on behalf of the Snohomish Parks Foundation, I wish to speak in support of the master plan parking location as recommended by the Parks Board. The potential though it does seem that there is some leeway within that, which is very nice to hear. My primary concern is the potential for ongoing user parking conflict in the more private use location of the senior center. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Badgley.
Good evening, Paul Kaftansky, 103 Suncrest Drive, Snohomish. Two quick hats. One, as a Snohomish Parks Foundation member, I want to thank the council for adopting the master plan on December 21st. That definitely will serve lots of local parks and recreation needs as well as regional parks and recreation needs, and it adds valuable open space to an area of the city that has a deficit of open space and parkland. And the foundation has already purchased a grove of trees, and we will continue our foundation efforts to develop amenities for the Centennial Trail. Taking off that hat and just speaking as a citizen, I'd like to address the parking issue. You know, parking is a challenging and sensitive issue. It's challenging because it tells you you have a vibrant city. I mean, if there wasn't a parking challenge, we'd be very concerned about that. And it is very sensitive. We're all used to parking as close to possible to where we want to go. And yes, there are lots of mobility challenges that the center members have. But I would ask you to consider not relocating the parking back to the center. I think in reviewing the staff report, the staff have done an excellent job of outlining demand options instead of increasing capacity through staff parking on street, through changes in some of the programming. That existing capacity, I think, is sufficient. I think if you were to put the parking back in front on the east side of the senior center, you would severely impact the open space design of the master plan. The Rose Dog Garden is a beautiful aesthetic, and I take issue that pea patches are not valuable. They are becoming increasingly valuable, not only here but across the country. There's a local effort. People do not have open space where they live. They need a place to grow local food, and I think a community garden on the east side of the senior center would be a wonderful recreational amenity that could be programmed into senior center activities. And most of these community gardens are managed by third parties. The senior center could possibly manage that and have a revenue source for that community garden. I think if parking still remains an issue, there may be another alternative to consider, because what I heard this evening was also the guarantee of parking. And I think if you exchange the 31 spaces today for 46 mixed-use spaces, come the weekend and come the summer in the morning, you're going to see many more trail users there than senior center members. They'll be there before the senior center opens, And I think we're just punting this decision to a future council meeting because you'll be asked to solve that problem in the future. And so I think the guarantee of parking is equally important. So my suggestion is to consider on the south side of 4th, between Lincoln and Maple, having permitted parking only for senior center members, say Monday through Friday between 10 and 2 p.m. When you get 8 spaces there, you get some programming changes, and you have your 15 spaces. I think that is a viable solution because I think the issue also is a guarantee of parking, and I think the shared use parking will be very problematic in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kastansky. Appreciate your words. Any other speakers? All right. Mr. Keithley, I see you approaching.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Bruce Keithley. My address is 21 Avenue A in Snohomish. I'm a member of the board of directors of the senior center, and I'm addressing you in that capacity. I would like us all to take a step back and remember Everett Olson, who was a member of this city council in the mid-1970s when I was city attorney. I'm sure some of you knew him, and perhaps some of you didn't. Everett loved this city. He pretty much single-handedly moved an old house to the cemetery site and created the first senior center because he felt the need for such a place in our town. Everett is the father of Darlene Huntington, who with her husband has been a key player in getting the new senior center built in her father's memory. I can tell you for sure that Everett Olson would be shocked, amazed, and hugely saddened by the pushback that the seniors have gotten from the city on the desire to put the parking beside the senior center. I join Everett Olson in his sadness. He would have done whatever he could to get the city, as a city council member or as a citizen, to help make the senior center a more friendly, user-friendly place. I urge you, in memory of my friend Everett, to make it a more user-friendly place by putting the parking beside the senior center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keithley. Last call.